Come with me on a trip into angling adventure. We'll ride the ragged edge where the fish are big and wild. From the fabled Walker's Cay, we'll travel to the ends of the earth, to the loneliest oceans and the farthest rivers in search of the best light tackle action. We'll pit the smallest lures and the lightest rods against the toughest fish, and we'll burn the stories into the memory of film on the Walker's Cay Chronicles. 100 feet below me was the famous inlet at Montauk Point, the very tip of Long Island, a few miles east of the summer playground known as the Hamptons, and one of the most famous ports in all of saltwater fishing. I'd heard all the stories about Montauk, including the one that claims it was the seat of Peter Benchley's imagination when he wrote Jaws, and now I would see it firsthand. It was October, a month after a vast army of summer vacationers had decamped and gone back to their jobs in New York City. Now Montauk was left to a handful of residents and a second army, this one made up of surf fishermen who bivouacked by the hundreds along its beaches. I'd flown up from Florida in the morning, riding the last leg of my journey in Bob Aplenalp's private Mallard. And now, as the pre-World War II amphibian strained against a stiffening northeast crosswind, I felt my excitement build at the prospect of experiencing this place of angling myth, where Frank Mundus brought in the largest white shark on record, 17 plus feet and over 3,000 pounds.
Hey, Bobby!
Nice
Good to see you, Bone.
Welcome to Montauk.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Thank you.
My host was Bob Popovics. His knowledge of Montauk is drawn from a lifetime of angling its beaches and jetties. And when I asked him why he loved it so much, he showed me a tape on which he'd recently captured part of his answer. Montauk Point may be on closer terms with Mother Ocean than any other point of land on the Atlantic seaboard. Schools of Bunker or Menhaden range along its beaches like so much seaweed, and in the fall, bluefish and striper and false albacore invade the shallows, cutting and slashing where bathers walked only weeks before. Many places along the coast can claim scenes such as this, but none can claim they happen as often as here where the land ends, at Montauk Point. By virtue of its boarding house reach into the sea and the easy access to its miles of beaches, Montauk serves as Mecca for northeastern surfcasters. Under the 200-year-old lighthouse, the surf fishing fraternity gathers by night and by day, camping along the beaches, sleeping in their vans, or catching a few hours rack time at one of Montauk's many motels. But there is no sleep during the harvest moon in October, when they come here by the thousands to cast bait or lures into the churning riptide that is always layered with big stripers, 30 pounds and more, and bluefish high into the teens and beyond. But Montauk has other visitors. Here, a humpbacked whale on its way south to its breeding grounds in the Caribbean has wandered inshore from the Gulf Stream to feed on brill and plankton and cause a stir. Swinging its 40 tons and 50 feet into the same waters being fished by awestruck surfcasters, the humpback's brief passage will play forever in the memories of the few who were there to meet it. In addition to being the occasional playland for whales, Montauk is also a primary gateway to some of the best big game fishing on the East Coast. Within an hour's boat ride of the inlet are white marlin and swordfish in the summer, and giant bluefin tuna and a host of other big busters in the fall. But what Bob and I sought this day was stripers and bluefish in the surf, on fly rods. Our first stop was to stow my bags at the Montauk Lake Club and to tie a few of Popovic's famous streamer flies.
Bob, what does that little bit of a bead right behind the ring of the eye do for you?
Well, what that does is it's just a large silver bead. It allows me to have all the weight focused right behind the eye of the hook.
Okay.
Yeah, and what that allows that fly to do is once you pause your retrieve, to dip straight down and fall down naturally, and then it gives you a good jigging motion up and down.
Okay, makes lots of sense.
Now, this is it here. All this epoxy work that I do, I always try to do it with the 2 coats. You just need a little bit here to get it through all the material down to the shank of the hook, and then it allows me to concentrate on getting the epoxy just where it's needed and get the shape of the fly that I want, because once the epoxy hardens, I won't be able to change it.
So you're kind of the father of this whole epoxy fly concept, aren't you, Bob?
Yes, sir. This is one of my babies that actually started this in around 1975. Were the first ones that I made, and that evolved from just making them with bucktail with polar bear, and then when ultra hair came along, it seemed to be a natural because it was a tough material underneath a tough substance, and it made a real strong, durable fly.
Yeah.
It was the pop flies, so to speak, and then we just use the term pop flies just to denote any other type patterns that I come up with.
In practically no time at all, we were throwing 2 freshly tied flies into the surf at a spot just down the beach from the lighthouse. And while I waited for the first bump of a blue or a striper, I considered just how far the fly rod has come in recent years. Originally designed exclusively for trout, the fly rod has undergone almost as many changes as the modern automobile. Here in New Zealand, I put it to its original use.
When you see the fish.
Here he comes towards you. Coming down.
Can you see the hook?
Changing its composition from split bamboo to spun glass and now to graphite, the fly rod in the 1950s expanded its horizons to saltwater game. Here in the Bahamas, the connection is with bonefish.
Eat it, you dog. Nice big bone, dog. Way to go, Flip. Way to go. Way to go. Yes, yes!
There he is. There he is.
About the same time, the fly rod was applied to the Silver King of the Flats, the tarpon. Here I'm hooked up with one on my old stomping grounds outside Isla Morada in the Florida Keys. In the late 1960s, the fly rod was introduced to the Pacific sailfish. Here in the rich Panamanian waters outside the Tropic Star Lodge, I employ the technique of teasing the fish up close behind the boat with plastic squid and casting the fly under its nose.
Here we go.
And a few years later, the saltwater rod found another sparring partner, this time on the Atlantic side. Here in Venezuela, I try to hook up with a finicky white marlin.
Out of here! Out of here! Out of here! Boy, this is a lunatic!
Now, just about every game fish has been caught on a fly rod, including some very large predators. Here on the flats outside of Key West, I test the fly rod and myself against a very large bull shark.
Got it. Strip it, strip it, strip it, strip it. He's got it, Flip. I think he's got it. All right, good job, good job. Whoa! All right, Flipster.
Holy
Save.
This fish is 400 or 500 pounds.
But if Bob and I expected to catch a striper or a bluefish in the surf today, the north winds were telling us something else. So we climbed into our truck and headed up the beach in the direction of the point, where we would be able to climb to a high point and take a look around in the hopes that we'd spot somewhere calm enough to wet our lines. Boy, it sure looks a lot calmer over on this side. If we can get around over here with the boat, we might have a day.
Yeah, I think you're right. What we need is a boat. This would do it for us here.
Can we get into that area right there? Is that doable?
No problem there. All we got to do is just keep an eye on some of this action behind us, and we'll be in good shape.
Flip Pallot here with an incredible new offer. By popular demand, you can now own every episode from the first 3 award-winning seasons of the Walker's Cay Chronicles.
Yes! There he is. There.
Each year's set of 13 complete episodes is only $89.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-WALKERS and log on to our new website at walkerscay.com. There's more angling action, information, and incredible surprises only a click away.
Bob, a stripping basket. You use this even in the boat?
Absolutely. Never leave home without that one.
I thought you just use this on the beach to keep it out of the tide and out of the wash of the waves and things.
No, and here it's good too with this wind and everything and moving. If we go from one school to another, a lot of times you don't want to have to strip everything back onto the reel and then redo it again. It holds your line in check and you're ready to go as soon as you pull up on that another school. So it's very helpful.
What are these little things made out of here?
This is heavy mono, like weed whacker cord, and helps give some tension to that line so when it comes out, you know, it doesn't allow it to just come out in one big ball. It sort of restricts a little bit and lets it come out nice and even. You don't get that big bird's nest up at that first stripping guide.
We ran a short way out of the inlet to a shallow stretch just off the beach where the stripers were feeding on some bait fish called silver showers. We were well inside the lee of the point, drifting over a reef called Shagwam, a local haunt of stripers. Here at least we'd be able to cast and maybe even catch a fish or two.
Bait out here. Look, let it flash.
Although the air was sharp, the wind was no longer a factor, and for the first time since Bob and I hit the beach, my Florida bones were not rattling.
There he is.
Way to go! Good going!
Finally here. Nice one.
Oh boy! You want me to turn the boat around for him?
Yeah, keep in pretty good position is good. He may go across the stern. Let's see. Well, it's beautiful when that line comes tight like that, Flip.
That's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Jeez.
That's what we're here for.
I hear you.
The line coming tight. Boy, there's madness in there toward the
Oh,
beach.
absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to come around the stern.
Come ahead.
It's a great fight from these fish, Flip, you know? You get them and they give you a good little run. They got good strength. They give you some stamina there. A lot of hard work in order to get that fish.
I'm telling you. With all that wind and freezing cold, I thought we'd never see a striped
please.
bass.
I know, I know.
I'm telling you, I think if we hadn't gotten off the beach, we may not have seen him today.
I know. That's it. Well, you got to take what opportunities avail you.
I know.
You know, sometimes it's not on the beach. Weather's bad. Everything is a little bit difficult to do there sometimes, you know. Just jump into the boat and get maybe a possibility of running a couple of them down.
The striper were feeding all over the reef, especially in close, and I wondered if we might not have done just as well from shore, but I wasn't complaining.
What do you think, Bobby, if I just cut back around in a circle back around where they were laying on that white sand? You
Give
think?
it a shot. I think that's a pretty good idea. They're here, Flip. Make another pass here.
Almost there, man. Almost there.
Hardest thing about this, Flip, is not to get a single.
You got fish all over you, Bob, there. Fish
Okay.
following you by
Going
the
out.
thousands. Good going, bud. Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, I hope he doesn't get you in that rock
I
there.
know. I've been watching. There's a few of them down there. He's a good navigator. Maybe he wants to stay out of the way. Oh, there's another one here. That's a good fish.
A decent striped bass.
Got beautiful stripes on that fish there, Flip.
Mr. Bob. Glorious.
Thank you.
Glorious. Just glorious.
And it was glorious, even the wind, especially when it went away and Bob and I could walk the shoreline casting his streamers into the sea.